News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Amy Morris. And there's your closing bell for this Tuesday on Wall Street, where stocks fluctuated as traders assessed risks from tariffs, an economic slowdown, and inflation pressures. And of course, we bring you the closing numbers each day here at Bloomberg. The S&P 500 gained 9 points. NASDAQ gained 83. The Dow gained 4 points. The 10-year Treasury yield at 4.3% and the 2-year yield at 4.01%. In world news, the U.S. says Russia and Ukraine have agreed to a ceasefire in the Black Sea and to work out mechanisms for implementing their ban on strikes against energy infrastructure. However, Bloomberg's Nick Wadham says there's a big caveat to this deal.
Russia says, listen, if you want us to do this, you have to lift all these sanctions. Agriculture has been a very heavily sanctioned sector for Russia. So, I mean, on the one hand, it's like, yeah, of course, if anybody's going to want to do business with these Russian companies, they're going to need to lift sanctions. But on the other hand, it's sort of what you'd think of as like a chipping away at the sanctions regime on Russia, and that's going to be seen as a major concession to Vladimir Putin.
Nick Wadham speaking to Business Week Daily. The Kremlin confirmed the Black Sea agreement, but said it was dependent on sanctions relief for banks and companies involved in agricultural exports. President Trump is standing by his national security advisor, Michael Waltz, after the revelation that the Trump administration's top intelligence officials used the Signal messaging app to share attack plans for strikes against Houthi rebels. And they also shared those plans with an editor at The Atlantic.
I think it's something you should look into.
Yes, sir, we are. We have our technical experts looking at it. We have our legal teams looking at it. And of course, we're going to keep everything as secure as possible.
Now, the U.S.'s top two intelligence officials, John Ratcliffe and Tulsi Gabbard, were on Capitol Hill defending their participation in that chat, where CIA Director Ratcliffe denied the information they discussed was classified.
My communications, to be clear, in a Signal message group were entirely permissible and lawful and did not include classified information.
Well, we will make that determination.
Virginia Democratic Senator Mark Warner blasted the Pentagon and intelligence officials for engaging in the chat.
If this was the case of a military officer or an intelligence officer and they had this kind of behavior, they would be fired.
Warner, the vice chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, wanted to know if officials are still using government or personal devices and if those devices have been inspected to ensure they're not infected with malware. U.S. consumer confidence fell in March to the lowest in 4 years on concerns about higher prices and the economic outlook amid the Trump administration's escalating tariffs. Conference Board senior economist Stephanie Gashard.
What's important is that now this was the fourth consecutive decline, and now the index is below that range in which it has been hovering for the past 2 years. So it's clearly a weak reading.
Stephanie Gashard speaking with Bloomberg Intelligence. The Conference Board's gauge of confidence decreased 7.2 points to 92.9. The median estimate in a Bloomberg survey of economists called for a reading of 94. Tesla's had a few bad months before its stock rallied earlier this week. Tesla shares suffered 9 straight weeks of losses and had lost roughly half the value since the December peak. This spooked Tesla loyalists, but not Kathy Wood of ARK Investment Management.
If you look at metrics like range and power for a given price, Tesla is still very competitive, if not the most competitive, depending on the model of car.
Kathy Wood's ARK Investment Management remains bullish on Tesla and tells Bloomberg TV she expects the stock will hit $2,600 in 5 years, almost 10 times its current price. An appeals court has ruled the Trump administration can stop allowing new refugees into the U.S. while the lawsuit over the refugee system plays out. President Trump signed an executive order stopping the refugee system altogether. A U.S. district judge ruled the president can't do that because the refugee system was a law passed by Congress. That's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Amy Morris, and this is Bloomberg.